Hello friends, welcome back to the next video tutorial of the Android application development and using the SQLite database in your Android application for the better use of the functionalities. So in the previous tutorial I have talked about the initial setup, that how you have to do the initial setup for the SQLite database and how you have to declare the DB handler class over here, and how you have to declare the separate class for the student that we are going to add the student information in our database. So this is what the initial setup. If you do not have seen that particular video, so please refer that video first, then only after you will understand this particular video tutorial. So next thing that I have described, that I have designed the different forms for add the student, the update the student information, and delete the particular student information. So this is what the layout of the update the student information, and this is what the layout of the delete the particular student information. They require some basic kind of a input from the user, that is what the ID of the student, that whatever ID will be generated, that ID will be displayed to them when they want to see the details of the students. So this is what the different forms. Now how we will design this or handle these particular forms with the dialog fragment. So let's say we will first see the add student form. So for that create a class in the Java file, that is the add student dialog over here. So here is a class that I have created with the help of the name as the add student dialog, which extend not the activity but it extend the dialog fragment. So it is a kind of a fragment which is a dialog. So there is a one parent class dialog fragment which you have to extend with this particular class. So create a class add student dialog. In that particular class, create an interface that will handle the on-click event of the button of this particular dialog. So create an interface add student dialog listener. In that particular interface, create a method void on save button click. So this is what the button that we want are going to declare later on the dialog fragment, and this is what the method which will handle the on click event of that particular save button. So just create an interface on save button click and pass on the dialog fragment instance over here. So this is what the parameter. Now create an instance of this particular add student dialog listener over here. Create an instance add student dialog listener equal to add student listener, that is what the instance. Create the context, I think, which is not useful over here. And whenever you will create this particular dialog fragment, first thing that you have to do that it will call the onCreate dialog method over here. So whenever the dialog fragment will be created, then there's something that you have to display to the user. So for that, in this particular method onCreate dialog, you have to do the changes, that which layout you want to display to the user. So for that, create an instance of the alert dialog builder. Use the alert dialog builder to define one particular instance of the alert dialog builder class, and you will have fetch the context of the activity, not this dialog fragment. Okay, so you will fetch the context of the get activity, that which activity has called this particular dialog fragment. So get the activity, that is the context that we will pass to the alert dialog dot builder. Then get the layout inflator. The layout inflator is useful when you will want to display the custom layout for the any different fragment or the different dialog fragment. So for that, get the instance of the layout inflator with the help of the layout inflator equal to get activity dot get layout inflator. Then what you have to do, you have to just set the parameters for the builder. So here is the parameter in builder dot set view, that you have to display the custom layout over here, the custom layout from the XML file. So set view, we will use the inflator instance, inflator dot inflate. We will inflate that particular layout over here, r dot layout dot student form. That is the student form that we have defined over here. So that will display as a dialog in this particular builder. So builder dot set view, inflate the particular student layout and pass on the null as the root element of this particular layout. Next, here it will close that particular set view method. Next, dot set the positive button for this particular dialog fragment. So we will set the positive button which has the string equal to add. So if the user has inputted this particular information, then it can easily add the information for the student to the database. So add, we will pass on the dialog. Add is the string that will display to that particular user. And how we will handle this onClick event. So for that, create a new dialog interface dot onClick listener. So for the dialog fragment, the onClick method, onClick listener of this particular button will handle by this particular method. So that is what the public void onClick dialog interface dialog and integer id. So in this particular method, you have to handle the add click event of this particular button. So here we will define the interface method that we have declared over here. Okay, so it will be handled by this particular method. So we will use this particular instance of the add student dialog listener. So that is what the add student listener dot on save button click add student dialog dot this. So we will pass on this particular instance of this dialog fragment for the on save button click listener. So that is what the configuration that you have to do for the positive button, and this method will be implemented in the main activity. That how you will handle the different parameters that the user has inputted, the different information, so how you will fetch this information and how you will ask this information to the database handler, that will be implemented in the main activity from where this particular dialog fragment is called. So that is what the set positive button, and for the set negative button we have to just display the string of the cancel, and we does not have to do anything new, we have to just cancel or dismiss the dialog. So add student dialog dot this dot get dialog, so it will get the dialog window dot cancel, so it will just cancel your dialog. And at the last you have to return the builder dot create. So whenever the instance of this on create dialog will be created, you have to return this particular type of a dialog to the calling method. So this is what the addition that you have to do in the add student dialog. Now next, that you have to confirm that the activity which is calling the add student dialog, the activity which is calling the add student dialog class or instance from itself, then it has to implement this particular interface, the add student dialog listener interface. So make sure it has implemented or not. So for that you have to use the on attach method over here. Whenever this particular dialog fragment is attached to that activity, then you can use this method. So on attach, pass on the activity, you have to pass this instance, the add student listener equal to add student dialog listener. You have to pass on the activity. Then this will be in the try on catch that the activity doesn't implement the interface, so you can throw the exception, that is throw new class cast exception activity dot toString, and that activity must implement the add student dialog listener. So this is what the configuration, and this is what the code that you have to do in the add student dialog. Now where you will use this particular add student dialog? So in our main activity we have the layout like this one. So on clicking the add student button, it will open the dialog window. So for that we have defined a button instance, the button add student over here. We have get the button ID with the help of the ID of that particular button. So button add students, button find view by ID r.id button add students, and we have declared a one particular on click listener over here. So when the button add student dot set on click listener is there, then we will define the new view on click listener over here. On click method we have to display that particular dialog. So we will create an instance of this particular class, the add student dialog equal to new add student dialog. So it will create the dialog with all of the configuration that we have implemented over here. So it will just create this particular instance, and we does not have to do anything new, we have to just show this particular dialog to the user. So dialog dot show get fragment manager and the tag. So this is the configuration that you have to do. So dialog dot show get fragment manager, so it will implement it will display that particular dialog to the user, but we have to implement that particular method, the add student dialog listener dot on save button click. So that is the method which we have to implement over here. So whenever you will create an instance of this class particular, then it will just display a particular message that you have to override some methods, or you have to implement some methods of this particular dialog. So for that you have to just extend your activity that it implements the add student dialog dot add student dialog listener. So whenever you will implement this particular thing, it will implement the method of your particular class. That is what the on save button click. So from the dialog, whenever the user will click the on save button, what will happen? So we have to fetch those information from this particular dialog, the enrollment number, name and the phone number, and we have to pass on this information to the DB handler, which will handle the database activity. So here in this particular method on save button click, it has the dialog fragment over here. So we will fetch the information, the enrollment number, name and the phone number. With the help of these things, you know how to fetch the information from the activity. Then in this you does not have to do anything new. You have to just add a one particular dialog view over here before getting this particular find view by id. So dialog dot get dialog, which will get the dialog, and then you can call the find view by id to get the particular instance of the edit text from the dialog. So this is what you have to do. The enrollment number will be converted to the string, and then after it will be converted to the integer. The name will be remain into the string format, and the phone number will remain into the string format also. The additional part that I have done, which I have done checking the validation of the enrollment number, name and the phone number that the user has inputted, is all the things or not. Okay, so these are what the different thing that you have to do. So it will just get all the information over here whenever the save button click will be fired over there. So after checking this particular validation, what I have done, that if any of the things is missing, then I will just display a message that enter data again, you does not have provided the proper information. Or else what we have to do, we have to pass on this information to the DB handler class, which will add the student to the SQLite database. So there is a one method we have to implement in the DB handler class. Okay, so we have seen in the previous tutorial the on create and the on upgrade method. Now there is an on add new student method is there, which will take a parameter of the student, which will take the object of the student as a parameter. So what will happen when this particular method will be get called? So first of all, get the instance of the SQLite database, db equal to this dot get writable database, it will get the db database. Then you have to create the instance of the content values, which will contain the values that we are going to set in this particular content value instance. So values dot put key roll number equal to new student, the instance of the students that we have declared over here. The new student dot get enrollment number, so it will get the enrollment number from that values dot put key name. We will put the name over here, which is defined by this particular string, and this is the name of the column of the particular table. So key name equal to new student dot get name, so it will get the name from this particular instance. And same for the third column, that the key phone number equal to new student dot get the phone number, so it will get the phone number of that particular student. So this is what the thing that we have to add in the DB handler class, and this is what the value instance that we have created. Now we have to add this particular value instance to the database. So db.insert, it is the method that will insert the values into the table. So db.insert, pass on the table name, table student details, pass on the second value as the null, which is the null callable hang is that, and the last one is the content values. So this is what the things that you have to pass. So we have to pass the table name over here, then the null in the null content values hack, and the values that you have defined over here, or we have configured over here. So the values we have to pass into this particular query. So this will insert that particular student information, and then after you have to just close this particular database. So this is what the parameter, this is what the thing that you have to configure in the DB handler class, which will handle the add student information, add new student information to the database. Now what we have to pass, we have to pass just a student instance over here. So what I have done in the main activity, so if all the things are not null. That means the user has given the proper information for the insert into the database. So what happened, we will just call the db.addNewStudent. That is the method that we have defined just now into the particular db handler class. As you can see, the db handler class has contained the db handler class contain the addNewStudent, which contain the student. So we will create a new student instance over here with the three parameters: the enrollment number, which we have get from over here, the name, and the phone number, which we have get from the user. So this is what how you will create the student instance. With the help of this information, it will create the student instance, and it will pass this particular instance to this particular db handler class method, and it will get the values from this instance, and it will set the values with the proper key and value pair, and it will insert these particular values into the student database, student table entry. So this is how you can insert one particular student information from this particular form. After the validation, it will check the validation, the add student dialog is there, which you have to configure that the make sure that in the main activity, whoever is creating that this particular dialog has created or implemented the onSaveButtonClick listener onSaveButtonClick method of the listener of this particular class or not. So onSaveButtonClick, you have to get the values from the dialog fragment, you have to check the validation of that particular fragment, and then you have to just call the db handler class method, that is what the addNewStudent method, which will contain the student instance from that one. So create an instance with the help of these particular parameters that the user has just inputted, and pass that particular instance to the addNewStudent. And what the addNewStudent will contain, it just contain the database instance, it just contain the different instance of the content values. For the values that you pass on these two particular instance, it will take the values from that one, it will format that into the key and the value pair, and it will put that into the content values, and it will just insert fire and query. That is what the db.insert, the name of the table, the null is the second parameter, and the last one is the content values. So it will insert your this information into the particular database table. So this is how you will fetch the information from the user, and how you will configure on, and how it will insert the values, user inputted values, to that particular database table. So this is how the add student form. The same thing that we have to configure for all the other forms, that is what the update student information and the delete student information, that we have to specify the different dialog fragment classes for the delete student and the update student information, and we have to display the custom layout to the user, and we have to implement a method that will handle the dialog fragment activity in the main activity, that the method that we have to implement over there, that I am going to describe in my next video tutorial. So make sure you will do the configuration, or make sure you will do the second part of this particular video tutorial very well. So thanks for watching this video, and make sure you will see the both of the previous one of the previous tutorial before going for this one, and please see my next video tutorial to get the end of this particular video series. So thanks for watching this video, and please subscribe to my channel for the best of the Android application development. Thank you.